Well, the Palo Alto Board of Education saw the election of 3 new members, although one seat is still unconceded right now.
Yeah, so the 2 challengers in the race, Jennifer DiBrienza and Todd Collins, pretty much secured first and second place from the beginning of when election results came out on Tuesday night. And Melissa Baton-Caswell and Heidi Emberling are still relatively close for the 3rd seat. Heidi was ahead in the very beginning when results came out, and Melissa pulled ahead by the next morning, and she's now ahead by about 135 votes. But Heidi has not yet conceded. She said she wanted to wait for all the results to come in. I think by this morning, 68% of ballots had been counted, according to the registrar, but all precincts in Palo Alto had been reporting by about 11 on Tuesday night. So
we've still got mail-in ballots that are trickling in.
Last-minute ballots.
Yeah, that have been postmarked on Tuesday. I think it's surprising to some that DiBrienza and Collins so easily got the first and second seats.
Yeah, and DiBrienza in particular was far ahead from the very beginning and has maintained a really strong lead. She has about 28% of the vote right now, and Todd has a decent lead on Melissa, but not too far off. He has about 20% of the vote, and she's at about 19.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was sort of a little referendum of sorts on the incumbents, although it is interesting that, the longer serving incumbent is the one that might be reelected over Heidi, who's only served 1 term.
Now, DiBrienza is a former teacher and an educational consultant. Did she or her supporters think that really resonated with the voters, her education background, basically?
I think that did, but she said on election night that she heard from a lot of people that she sort of invigorated people who hadn't been involved in elections before, involved in the school district, and different kinds of people campaigning for her and signing on to support her. So, and that's from her perspective. So, unclear if that's true or not, but just she felt like, and I mean, that does indicate, the results do kind of indicate that more people came out for her, perhaps than in past elections for other people. So
yeah, and she's going on what she heard kind of on the campaign trail.
I think it's also worth pointing out that, I think undoubtedly her background probably plays a huge role, but she also had a very strong campaign in the sense that you see her out there. A lot of the people who supported, like the council people who did well, also supported her. So I think background is one thing that could help you get elected, but I think how well you campaign, I don't think we could discount that as well.
Sure.
Yeah, she led in fundraising, and she also, we were talking in our last episode about city council race and some of the council candidates running along with Liz Niss and the sort of Liz Niss effect. Liz Niss also announced Jennifer at a campaign event and endorsed her and was behind her campaign. So I don't know if that's linked at all.
She took the Niss train to victory.
Yeah, so she had the backing of a lot of established people in the community. And she said, maybe it was my background. She also has kids in elementary school versus some of the candidates have kids either in high school or out of the district. She didn't know if it was sort of invigorating that section of the community
She's
more so.
right now.
Yeah, so a combination of different things.
Yeah, and Collins, another outsider, really comes from the investment side of things, and the budget, of course, was something that he made kind of the central pillar of his campaign. Was it in any way surprising that people rallied behind him in order to elect him?
I don't think so. I think it certainly sends the message that people care about the budget and want someone on the board who understands it, is willing to take the action necessary and make hard choices, as he's often said, instead of kicking the can down the road. And so I think that sent a clear message about how voters are feeling about the budget deficit in the school district.
And I think in some ways you said this was maybe somewhat of a referendum on the incumbents. I think you can make an argument that it was. In the sense that both the incumbents came in and they're still battling for the 3rd seat. Yeah. And then someone like Collins, who was pretty much, he participated in the enrollment the enrollment management committee, but he's less well known as certainly an incumbent. He was coming from a different tack altogether.
Yeah. And also Srinivasan Subramanian, who dropped out of the campaign in September, got almost half the votes that Heidi and Melissa did, and his name was still on the ballot. So
see the protest vote.
Exactly, yeah. So maybe people, just couldn't bring themselves to vote for the incumbents, and either knew or knew that he had dropped out and still voted for him, or just didn't even know, and he sounded good, so they voted for him anyway. So
Yeah.
it would have been interesting to see if he had actually ran, how that would have impacted the results.
Yeah,
It would have been interesting to see if he was accidentally elected, what he would have done.
Well, dead people have been elected too, so he has an advantage over them. The evaluation component, I think Todd Collins, I remember at our school board forum in September, really harping on that we need to be measuring the outcomes of programs, and it seems like that was something that he was trying to drive home, and perhaps that was also something that was resonating.
Yeah, he's really big on data, and you can see that in how he talks about issues, how he's responded to things. His work on the EMAC committee is very clear that he likes to get into the data and let that drive his decisions, and he's spoken many times at board meetings about how not doing that in the past has led the board astray, and he likes to say, debate without data is often a waste of time, and it often drives people apart, in fact. So you can often
Quite often,
hear him
debate with data is a bigger waste of time.
Depends whose data it is.
Right.
And which debate,
So Baton Caswell, assuming that she does move into the third seat, this is also her third term, which is a little unusual for the school board. There's no term limits per se. But.
Right, she'll be the only second board member in 40 years to serve a third term if she's reelected, following Camille Townsend, whose term is ending now.
Yeah, and her rationale for that, her platform was, I have the experience, and we've got kind of a turnover in staff and board, and it's good to have someone who's been there longer.
Institutional knowledge.
Institutional knowledge, exactly. Are there key issues that are being discussed now and in the current year that will pretty much really rely on some really decisiveness on the school board's part? Some things that are urgent right now?
Certainly the budget. The new board will be deciding what to cut out of next year's budget to bridge this deficit that came out of the tax shortfall this summer. Special education is another big one. The district is expecting a report sort of evaluating its services and department sometime this month, and considering this new bullying case that has led to some renewed interest in looking at the implementation of the district's bullying and discrimination policies. That's sure to continue as an issue. Weighted GPA is sticking with us, so long-term practice on that's sort of a sub-issue, I think, of larger things people would like to talk about around student wellness and mental health, and that will also stay with us, I'm sure, into the next board.
Yeah, sure. So it's interesting, though, that the board changes a little bit earlier than the city council does. The new members come on in January for the city council. I believe the school board's going to come on board earlier than that.
Yeah, I think it's late
in December.
Sometime in January, or December, sorry,
Yeah, so there's not a whole lot more time for this current board to be meeting and making any decisions.
Right.
The lame duck, aspect of it.
Yeah, there's a meeting next Tuesday, and then 1 or 2 meetings in December.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did want to talk about the Ravenswood City School District as well. There's an interesting result of that, which is, so Sharifa Wilson and Maria Elena Guyana Mendoza were elected. Sharifa is a longtime elected official in East Palo Alto. Maria Elena has been known here in Palo Alto as well as in East Palo Alto, mostly for her critiques of both districts. Can you talk a little bit about her and what dynamic this might set up for Ravenswood?
Yeah, you can often see her at Palo Alto school board meetings and in East Palo Alto, being pretty critical of the board's handling of special education cases in particular. She's an advocate for special education families and also Hispanic families who might not speak English or it's not their first language. And she's really critical about the districts failing to respond adequately to complaints about a failure to support a special education student or family, issues around transparency. So the fact that she was elected is pretty interesting. And Sharifa Wilson, the incumbent, had some strong words about being worried that, she ran this very critical campaign and she has a picture of a district that she doesn't agree with. That Sharifa thinks that Ravenswood is on its way to sort of better days, and she's worried about someone who's so critical coming on to work with the board and what that sort of will mean for the rest of the board members. Yeah.
And does Maria Elena acknowledge or recognize that she needs to sort of change tactics or tones, approaches in order to work with the rest of the board, or does she kind of have her one approach that she's going to be following?
She said, she's willing to work with them, and she's eager that to get to work, and that but she felt like the fact that she was elected, and she was almost even with Sharifa Wilson in terms of the number of votes, the percentage of votes. So that sends a message, and she felt like what she had to say really resonated with parents, and she's really emphasizing wanting to be responsive to families and parents in a way that she said the current board hasn't been to her and other families. So she's emphasizing that as sort of a priority, I think, over worrying about working with her colleagues.
Okay, sure, what she was elected for.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to turn a little bit, sticking still to the education beat, but turn a little bit to the reaction to the national election. Schools, both at the district level, Stanford, Foothill College, they've all come out and made some responses, some direct responses to Donald Trump's election to the presidency. What are we hearing and what are we seeing from them?
Strong, I think, it's an implicit response to Donald Trump's campaign and sort of the rhetoric and divisiveness of that, but without explicitly saying that, very just focusing on inclusion and diversity and equity and supporting all students. Lots of messages around let's have open discussions, and in response to, there were some protests at Stanford, some anti-Trump graffiti, there were some harassment incidents at Palo Alto elementary, middle, and high schools this week. So really urging students to express themselves in sort of constructive ways, and also to parents and adults in the community to model, more constructive behavior, in light of something that is so emotional for many people.
Yeah, definitely very emotional. And I think I give credit to Stanford University for kind of setting the tone of let's have intellectual curiosity, let's maintain our freedom of speech for all people. But I think they're also going to have some community meetings or some sort of town halls on campus so that people could discuss.
Yeah, and I spoke to a student who said in many dorms there were organized discussions after the election in community centers, like Women's Community Center, Black Students Community Center, at places like that. People were really gathering to sort of reflect and for many people commiserate. But the Stanford Daily had a really good story sort of capturing what was going on campus, and there were quotes from Republican students who didn't want to say sort of who they had voted for exactly, but just this sentiment of we're all trying to talk about it and be open and not sort of get too emotional with other people.
Yeah. And I think certainly the past couple of days where President-elect and Hillary Clinton and President Obama have moved forward, doing what needs to be done in terms of protocol, has probably changed some of the attitudes or some of the dialogue in the past couple of days for people. But certainly it sounds like there's going to be a lot of processing still happening.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts for the school board? Or I should mention we also saw the election of Foothill De Anza Board of Trustees.
Right, one incumbent and two newcomers.
Yeah, Peter Landsberger and Gilbert Wong were elected. There's also a slightly close race for the third seat there as well, and the incumbent, Laura Casas-Freer, did well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for that wrap up. If you want to comment on any of these topics, you can do so below. Also, we encourage you to hit like or subscribe to us. You can comment on the articles that we write on Palo Alto Online by going to paloaltoonline.com/square for Town Square. And Elena, you have a Twitter feed. People can follow you there as well.
Yep, at Kadvany, my last name.
Okay. That's it for this week, and we'll see you next week on Behind the Headlines.